بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين أما بعد. In continuation with our discussion regarding the different components of zakah, the obligatory act which Allah Azza wa Jalla has mandated upon the believers. So we were talking about the lapse of a year. Now you've already have become the Malikun Nisab, and now zakah has become obligatory upon you, the type of wealth on which zakah is obligatory. Now how are you going to count your years? Because zakat is hawlan hawl. Yearly, every year you have to go and give your zakah, and this year is going to be counted according to the lunar calendar. So according to Imam Abu Hanifa rahmatullah alayhi, if the nisab, which is the amount that is making obligatory for zakah, is complete at the beginning and at the end of the year, it will be considered as if the person has possessed the nisab for the whole year, regardless of whether it decreases during the year or not. So let's say in the beginning, let's say the nisab is $500. So you've became a malik of $500, and that $500 came down to, let's say, $200 after 6 months. And then by the end of the year, that changed to $1,000. So now your zakah will be $1,000, not 500, not 200. Okay? So whatever decreases or increases in the middle of the year, that is not counted as far as in the beginning of the year, and at the end of the year, the amount has above the nisab. Whatever is earned during the period is added to the existing nisab, and zakat is paid on it at the end of the year if the nisab is complete. However, if the nisab reaches zero, meaning or minus, you go to completely zero, then the zakat will not be obligated again until the possess of the nisab happens to be for a whole lunar year. So from that $500, you went all the way to zero. So when you've gone to zero, then you go up to nisab again, then your year starts. Okay? The day on which a person acquires the nisab for the very first time, and after deducting his liabilities from his total zakat assets, he still remains a possessor of the nisab, i.e. his zakatable assets are not reduced to less than the nisab. So let's say if you have $500 and that's the nisab of $500. So you have $700, $200 you owe to someone, so you are above the nisab, so now you'll have to give zakat on that $500 in his valuation date for the purpose of giving zakah. After the lapse of one complete lunar year from this date, zakat will become due if he still possesses the nisab. Each of the zakatable assets should be considered as a separate category in which on its own when calculating the lapse of a year. It is not necessary that a year lapse on each separate acquaintance of zakat's assets. So you have multiple things. Not each and every single thing has to go over zakat or has to go for a year. So let's say you already became the nisab, you already became sahib nisab, and in the middle you receive some other type of material that you didn't have, right? So let's say you only had money, you didn't have any gold or you didn't have any silver. In the middle of the year you start receiving gold or silver, so all of that will be added into your asset and then zakat will be given. This is according to Imam Abu Hanifa rahmatullah alayhi. It is not necessary that each category be equivalent to the nisab. Rather, the value of all the categories are to be added up to the calculate of zakat. So for example number one, the nisab is $2,000. For example, the nisab is $2,000. On the 10th of Rabiul Awwal, 1434, a person possessed $2,000. And then this has made him sahib nisab, and now for the first time. Then throughout the year, this amount kept on increasing. Now, a year later, 9th of Rabiul Awwal, 1435, he owns $6,000. So the zakatable will be due how much? 2,000 or 6,000? 6,000, because whatever it added, it will be included into the amount. Okay. Now, for another example, the nisab is $2,000. On the 10th of Rabiul Awwal, 1434, a person possessed $2,800. After deducting $800 of debts that he owed to someone, he has $2,000 left with him. And that is the nisab which makes zakah obligatory upon him. So then he becomes sahib nisab. Throughout the year, this amount increases and decreases, and even went below the nisab. So it went up to $1,500, right? 2,000 went to $1,500. But then on the 9th of Rabiul Awwal, the next year, which is 1435, he owns $4,000. So how much will be its zakat? 4,000, 2,800, or 2,000? $4,000, right? $4,000 will be zakatable. A third example. On the 10th of Rabiul Awwal, a person, he is possessing $2,000, which is nisab. Now, throughout the year, this amount increased and decreased. Now, on the 9th of Rabiul Awwal, he owns $1,500. Is zakat mandatory upon him or not? How many of you say zakat is mandatory? How many of you say zakat is not mandatory? Yes, zakat is not mandatory. Why? Because he went below the nisab. Nisab was 2,000. So now the money is, a year later, 1,500. He is not, zakat is not mandatory upon him. Another example. On the 10th of Rabiul Awwal, 1434, he owns $2,000. And then, throughout the year, this amount increases and decreases. Now, on the 9th of Rabiul Awwal, he owns $3,000, but he has a debt of $1,500. Is zakat mandatory upon him? No. Why? Because the amount that he owes to someone is $1,500. So he's gone below the nisab, right? So now, these are different, examples. And one more example. A person owns $2,000 for the first time, is sahib nisab. After $2,800, after deducting $800 from the debt, he has $2,000, so he's sahib nisab. Now on the 20th of Sha'ban, right before Ramadan, before the next year, same year, 5 months later, he lost everything that he possessed. So he went to zero. Nothing. Lost all his money. Okay? Now, on the 3rd of Shawwal, he regains. So after 2 months, he gets $2,000 again. Okay? So, now he has become sahib nisab. So the next year, when the when the Rabiul Awwal will come, and let's say he has, where does his year start now? Does his year start from Rabiul Awwal again? Or his year start when he lost the money in Sha'ban? Or his year starts from Shawwal when he regained the money? His year will start from Shawwal. So if the next year, on the 2nd of Shawwal, he owns $4,000, so how much money he will give in zakat? What will be his amount that he has to take out zakat from? On the 3rd of Shawwal, he got 2,000, 1434. So on the 2nd of Shawwal, 1435, he has 4,000. So how much will be zakatable now? What is the amount that he will have to deduct zakat from? 2,000. 4,000. Because the nisab starts again. When you go below zero, nisab is finished. Okay? When you go below zero, it's completely off. Now, whenever you gain the nisab again, that's where your year starts. Okay? So this is the technical one. So you had money, you lost it in the middle of the year, you went into zero, right, or minus, and then after that, few months later, you regained the money. So now your year starts from the time when you regained the money and it got up to the nisab. Okay, now this was Imam Abu Hanifa, that whatever comes in the middle, it is counted, and not every single thing that has to have a year being spent upon, unless you go to zero. If you go to zero, then of course your nisab resets. According to Imam Malik and Imam Shafi'i and Imam Ahmed ibn Hanbal, rahimahumullah, they say that whatever is accumulated through profiting in business throughout the year will be added in the existing nisab. If there is no nisab, then the year will start from the time the nisab is complete. So Imam Abu Hanif, Imam Shafi'i, Imam Ahmed ibn Hanbal and Imam Malik say, rahimahullah, that whatever is increased in the middle of the year, if it's in business, then it will be added into the nisab, and not every single amount has to be added into a year. But if it's for personal, right? If it's for personal, then of course each amount has to have his 1 year lapse. So for example, you have a business, and on the 10th of Rabiul Awwal, in your business you have a sitting amount of assets of $50,000. Okay? Now, 6 months down the line, that went up to 100,000. Okay? So the next year, on the 9th of Rabiul Awwal, that amount went up to 150,000. Okay? So now, on the 9th of Rabiul Awwal next year, you are going to give zakah for 150,000, if that's for business. Now you have your personal savings. The first time you became Sahib Nisab on the 10th of Rabiul Awwal, you had $2,000. Now this 2,000 amount continued. And let's say 3 months down the line, that 2,000 went into 5,000. Okay? So now, when you come the next year, on the 9th of Rabiul Awwal, the next year, you have a total of 5,000. So on the 9th of Rabiul Awwal, are you going to give zakah of 5,000 or are you going to give zakah of 2,000? You're going to give zakah twice. You're going to give zakah of 2,000 on the 9th of Rabiul Awwal, and then 3 months after you will give the zakah for 3,000. Okay? So Imam Malik, Imam Ahmed ibn Hanbal and Imam Shafi'i rahimahumullah, they say that if it's a personal savings, then everything has to be added, and upon every amount a year needs to lapse. And according to Imam Abu Hanifa rahmatullah alayhi, they say that either it's business or personal, whatever is added into the middle of the year, not the entire year has to be spent on every penny. Whatever is added or subtracted in the middle of the year, you will just look at the beginning and at the end. And both of them have the reasons. Imam Abu Hanifa rahmatullah alayhi has the nas. He says the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said that whatever is added in the beginning or at the end, aw hawlan hawl, you have to give zakah. Whatever is added will be included. And Imam al-Shafi'i, Imam Malik and Imam Ahmad ibn Hanbal say that the condition is the wealth has to be for business purposes, because the condition of numa has to be there. Numa is growth. So your personal savings don't have growth. Your business savings or your business has growth. Business gets invested, the money gets invested, and then it grows. So that's where the difference of opinion develops. However, the safer option is to give zakah for the entire time at once, so that you don't have to keep in track, because you are allowed to give zakah before the arrival of time. For example, every year you give your zakah in Ramadan. Just for example. Now, before the approach of Ramadan, you had an opportunity in front of you. So you went on and you calculated your zakat that roughly in the month of Ramadan, this is the amount I'm looking at where zakah will be obligatory upon me. And you take out a month before and you give it to the need, so the zakat will be valid. It's not that you have to wait for the entire year, only for the first time. Only for the first time, when you became Sahib Nisab, for the first time, you have to wait for an entire year before that zakah becomes obligatory. But after, once it has become obligatory, the year after that, you can even give it before. Why for the first time? Because the fardiyah has not come into existence yet due to the lapse of a year not being found. It's like praying your salah before the arrival of time. When you pray your salah before the arrival of time, when the time comes, you have to repeat it. Correct? Because it never became obligatory. So, for the first time, you have to wait for the entire year. But after that first time is gone, then every year, if there's an opportunity, then you can give it early. It's not good to delay it. It's good to give it on time. And if there is an opportunity, you can give it early. And then, let's say you have given your zakah, your annual zakah happens to be in the month of Ramadan. And there was an opportunity, someone was in need of wealth, and they were zakat eligible, so you decided to give your zakat to them. So you roughly calculated that my zakah by the end of Ramadan, or by the 15th of Ramadan, and that's where I usually take out my zakah, on the 15th of Ramadan, it will be roughly around, zakatable will be about 50,000. I have to give zakah from 50,000. So you do the calculation of 50,000, 2.5% you gave zakah. And then what happens? On the 1st of Ramadan, you see a stimulus check in your account from the government, right? Stimulus check, the amount come in, 3,000, 5,000, whatever. Now, that's a saving. So on the 15th of Ramadan, you will just take that 5,000 that you have received and you will give the zakat of that. Because this amount was received before the end of the year, before the arrival of the year. So it will be counted into the year. Understand? Okay. Now, condition for giving zakat. What are the conditions for giving zakat? Number one is intention. The intention must be in the heart at the time of giving zakat to the poor person or his agent, or at the time of setting it aside for the sake of zakat to be given at a future date. You cannot say, you've given the money, and then later on you make intention, yeah, that can be counted as zakat. No. Either at the time of separating your wealth or giving your wealth. It is not necessary to mention to the poor person that this is zakat, as long as the intention of zakat is in the heart. So you don't have to tell a person that I am giving you my zakat. You can just give it to him. I'm helping you out. I'm assisting you. You are in need, so I'm giving you to help you. And you can just have that intention in your mind or in your heart that, this is zakat, as long as that person is eligible to receive zakat. If he's not eligible to receive zakat, then your zakat will not be counted. Okay. The second condition for giving zakat is tamlik. You have to make him ownership of that money. You cannot say, oh, just pay back to me, or this is, no, I gave it to you. A lot of times people do is, pay it back whenever you can. That will not be counted zakat. You have to let him know that this is in your ownership and you can invest it and do whatever you want with it. You cannot even put condition to the amount that you're giving. You cannot say, okay, I'm giving you this much amount, but you have to buy a car. No. Otherwise, zakat will be batil, because this is called shartu saqit, a condition which will invalidate your zakah. Because when you talk about tamlik, it cannot have condition. It's like selling a merchandise to someone with a condition. It's called bay'ul fasid, a transaction which is considered wrong. It is sinful to do a transaction with a condition on it. That I will give you this with the condition that you can only use it for this purpose. Right? So, zakat, you give it to him, you make him the owner of it, and that's it. And then you move on. The zakat must be given to the poor by transferring its ownership completely to the poor. Zakat cannot be spent on construction of buildings because there is no ownership in that. If there is a construction happening and you go and you give your zakat into the construction, then you cannot. Why? Because there is no ownership. No one owns that construction. Zakat, unless you are buying a house for someone who is zakat eligible. So let's say there is a house being constructed, and you go and you pay the contractor with the intention of buying a house for someone who is eligible for zakat. That I am going to, and then whenever the deed of that house comes, you put it under the name of the person who is eligible for zakat, then that type of money can be given. But you cannot just assume that, you're giving money for a construction building and then it's going to be, I can use it for zakat or somehow. Zakat may be given in kind from the same categories or an equivalent amount from another category or in cash. So you see, you have gold, you have silver, you have cash. You can combine all of it together and just give the zakat in cash. That's permissible to do so. A person may appoint another individual or an organization as an agent to distribute zakat. That organization must be trustworthy and knowledgeable. The zakat will not be considered as given until the agent distributes it to those who are eligible. The agent must distribute it in the venue as instructed. A person may ask someone to give zakat on his behalf. This will then become a debt. So until that zakat is not delivered. So whenever you're giving to an organization, always ask for two things. Number one, how much percentage from my money you're going to use for other reasons than to give it to the eligible individuals. Right? Number one. Number two is, when will be the time of delivery? When you will deliver my zakat? Because sometimes a lot of the organizations, they just accumulate wealth. So they have more balance than the actual spending. So your zakat is sitting in their bank. Until zakat is not being materialized, your zakat doesn't count. So you have to be very, careful in that, how and where you are giving zakat. The best option is al-yad bil-yad. Find someone and give it to him in their hand and khalas, move on. That's the best option. But if you are making someone if you are giving the authority to someone to go and give your zakat, then you have to find out a few things. Number one is, he knows who are zakat eligible and who are not zakat eligible. The person who you are making wakil to go and give your zakat, does he know who are the masarif of zakat? Does he know who to give when it comes to zakat? Number one. Number two is, what are the percentage from the money that you are giving will be used other than those that will go into the zakat eligible people? So let's say they will tell you, okay, we will use 7% of your money for other reasons, and the remaining, the remaining 93% will be used for your zakat. So you add that 7% from your pocket and you give it to them. Okay, this is an ujra for you to go and take care of my zakah, but do not take it from the other portion, because I want the entire amount to go to the eligible individual. And then you also ask for a delivery date. That when are you going to deliver my money? And then you tell them to notify you when the money is being delivered, so that you know for sure that your zakat has been delivered. A lot of people just, give away zakat and they just forget about it. And this money a lot of times, and of course, there is only so much that an individual can do. It's a combined effort. It's the shortcoming from the organizational part and shortcoming from our part also. So as we are, very mindful in many things, zakat is something that, has to be made sure that it delivers to the right people, to the right masarif, to be able to have that zakat become, acceptable. We ask Allah to give us the understanding. So next week, we're going to talk about those who are eligible to receive zakah. People and, organizations, or both, who are eligible to receive zakah. This will be next week, inshallah. Any questions for today's session? Yes, we'll talk about that in the next week's session, but you can give it, what type of relatives you're allowed to give to, what type of relatives, so there is a little bit detail on that. What type of relatives you're allowed to give to, what type of relatives you're not allowed to give zakat to, so on and so forth, inshallah. So we will talk about that in the next week's session, inshallah. So you said that nisab is 2,000, right? No, this was an example. The current nisab, I believe, is about, roughly about 2,000. That's where the nisab is, yes. So 2.5%. 2.5% from the nisab. Yes. So the nisab is calculated, if you have gold only, then there is a different nisab for gold, right? And that will be about, we had mentioned this last time. Let me just open the portion. Yes, alhamdulillah. So the nisab for gold is 87.48 grams or 3.8 ounces or 2.8125 troy ounces. So if you have this much gold or more, then zakah becomes obligatory. The nisab for silver is 21.6 ounces or 19.6875 troy ounces. Now when you have cash, that will be equivalent to the nisab of silver, not the nisab of gold. Because if you take the nisab of gold, then the nisab will become somewhere close to 5,000 plus. That's how much a 2 ounce. About an ounce, troy ounce, 1 ounce is about what? It's about what, 11,000? That's what the price is going right now, depending on things. So when you have cash, then you will take the nisab of silver. The gold nisab can only be used in gold and nothing else. And the silver nisab is going to be used for everything else. Money, cash, everything, assets, whatever that is, that will be according to the silver nisab. But the gold nisab is only to the gold and cannot be used anywhere else. So that's how. So you can, to find out the gold pricing or silver pricing, you can just go to silverprice.org or goldprice.org and you will get the pricing, and then that will be the nisab. I believe is about $1,500 to $2,000 currently where the nisab is at. Yes. So when you have let's say you have a shop, so you will, and that shop is of course for business, so whatever assets you have in the shop, so let's say you have merchandise, and the worth of the merchandise that is sitting in your shop, it's worth $25,000. So that will be your zakatable amount. That $25,000 worth of stuff that is sitting in your store. Now if from that $25,000 worth of stuff that is sitting in your store, let's say you still have to make payments for another $10,000 that you haven't paid the vendors yet. So you will minus that $10,000, your zakat will be upon $15,000. So that's how the material that is there, only the machinery will not be considered in zakat. But the material that is there will be considered in zakat, and that's how you will give zakat on the mine. Unless let's say if you are buying properties and selling properties for zakat. You buy houses and then you sell them, okay? Or you buy foreclosure properties, you fix them up, and then you sell them, okay? So let's say you bought a foreclosure property and now you are building that property up, okay? The property thing is whatever at the time of your zakat has become obligatory, what's the value of that property? Let's say you bought a house which is run down for $200,000. Now your intention is to fix that house up and sell it for whatever the market value is going to be. Now in the middle, zakat became obligatory upon you. So whatever the current value of that house is, this is what you're going to give in zakah. Not the one you purchased at and not the one you're going to sell at. Whatever the current value is, this is where you're going to give zakat upon. So properties, if they are bought with the intention of selling, then they will be added into zakat. If you bought a property or a house for the intention of renting it out, then that property is not zakatable because it doesn't grow. It sits there. You only collect rent, and that rent will be added into your savings, and if that saving happens to stay with you for a year, then you will give zakat from that as you will do to any other savings that you have. Does that make sense? Inshallah. Yes. So the entire amount of what you need to pay off, if that loan needs to be paid off within a year, then the entire amount from your money will be deducted. And then if you have left over, then you will be giving zakat. So for example, you have $50,000 and you owe $50,000, and that needs to be paid within a year before the next year zakat becomes obligatory. So now you will not pay any zakat because you owe 50,000 and you need to pay that before the amount of before the year arrives. Okay? So there will be no zakat upon you because this is called a necessary loan. And a necessary loan is something that you need to be paid off within a year period before the next year zakat becomes obligatory. If it's going to lapse over that year, then only 1 year amount is going to be deducted. For example, you need to pay $25,000 by the end of the year. And then the next $25,000 you can pay after another year. So you will only deduct $25,000, so you will be giving zakat on $25,000. Okay, inshallah? Yes, brother. So when you talk about a long-term loan, then there are two categories: Islamic finance, and then you have conventional loan. Okay? In Islamic finance, you will deduct one year amount of payment. Principal plus the profit, both together. If you have a conventional loan, you will only deduct 1 year of the payments, but the principal only, not the interest. Okay? So for example, you're paying $2,000 a monthly, right? So that will be $24,000 for a year, okay? But from that 24,000, 12,000 is your principal and 12,000 is interest. You will only deduct $12,000 from your savings, and rest of the money you have to give zakat. If you have an Islamic finance, then when you will deduct the entire $24,000 from your savings, and the rest of the amount that you have, that will be zakatable. Understood, inshallah? Yes. So the entire amount, whatever the amount that you have, and you have the intention to pay it off in a year, and you actually are working towards it, then of course the entire amount will be deducted. So you will have nil to pay for zakat. Yes. No, each individual's nisab is separate. Because nisab works on individuals. So if a husband has 1,000, then both of them are not zakat eligible. Even though they live in the same roof, under the same roof. But they're not zakat eligible because zakat is upon individual, nisab is upon individual, not on households. Similarly, when you have to give zakah, the both of them have to give zakah. However, husband can pay zakah on behalf of the wife. But both of them have to give zakah because zakat is individually nisab. Yes.
What about a husband and wife keeping together? So it will be one nisab or still separate?
So if both of their money is together, then of course, it's, but if you have, so let's say you are putting it together, but you know how much is how much, whose?
But we're talking about the time period. So if both are working, both work and they keep the money same as the household, there's no difference. So after the 12th month.
So the nisab will start whenever one person started to work. So let's say you got into work and the first time you got your paycheck, and 6 months later your wife started to work and then she got her paycheck. So her nisab will start from that 6 months and your nisab started at 6 months earlier. If the cycle starts same, of course the time. So the nisab can be calculated separately, however can be given together. But then the calculation needs to be done separately. So let's say if both of you are working together and all the money is put into one pool, right? So that one pool, you just take out the entire amount from it and that's it. Yes?
So if somebody has to give, like for example, somebody has become eligible, gifting nisab in Shaban, right? But then the person wants to wait until next year Shaban and then have to give zakah.
Correct.
But for example, is there any way for that person to, rather than give zakat in Shaban, to give it to in Ramadan? Because this is easy for him to remember just to defer it for a month or two.
So what he can do is, he can do, change of nisab or change of due date, right? So what he can do is either he can wait until Ramadan and then calculate the entire amount up to Ramadan. And then from next year, go to Ramadan. Or he can pay the zakat in Sha'ban and then whatever accumulation he has for that 1 month, he pays that amount and then his nisab will be changed to Ramadan. Yes? Correct. That will be deducted. This amount will be deducted from your savings. Okay, inshallah. Subhanallah wa bihamdihi. Subhanakallahumma wa bihamdika wa nashhadu an la ilaha anta nastaghfiruka wa natubu ilayk. Subhana rabbika rabbil izzati amma yasifun wa salamun alal mursalin walhamdulillahi rabbil alamin. Jazakumullahu khairan. Wa iyyakum wa iyyakum.